Call the meeting to order. So the first thing after calling to order is the prayer and pledge of allegiance. Scott, do you mind doing the prayer and the pledge for us?
Let's pray. Heavenly Father, we just thank you so much for this wonderful day. Just thank you for the mighty God that you are and your love for us, Lord. Just pray that you would just pour out your wisdom upon us, Lord, as we discuss things for our community, Lord. Just be with them, each one, Lord, and just let us honor and glorify you in all that we do and say. Just thank you for this time. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen. Amen. Attention, salute, pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay, our next item is approved minutes from the August 14th, 2023 regular meeting. Those are in your packet.
I so move.
First, do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, Jay, if you'll do the roll, please.
Yes. Berger,
Yes.
Miller,
Yes.
Anderson,
Yes.
Sordahl,
Yes.
Durr.
Yes.
Thank you. Our next item is Houston, report from the chamber.
All right. Good morning, everyone. Well, good afternoon by a couple of minutes. So hope you guys are all doing well. Have a lot going on at the chamber, so I'll just give you a brief overview of all the different things that's going on. November the 1st, we have our next PACC luncheon. Our last one was the State of the Schools. I think Fred was able to attend that. Those guys did a really, really good job, and I wanted to thank Dr. Moeller publicly for coming in and giving a good presentation, as well as the Thunderbird Academy as well. So November 1st is Inspire Mays County. So this is a new program that a collective group of folks within the county or within the city working out with the county to provide a program that we're going to unveil at this PACC luncheon. So we hope that you can attend. And I think it's going to be inspiring, as the name says. So Inspire Mays County, November the 1st. October 31st is Trick or Treat. So folks, last year we had 22 businesses signed up. This year we have 52 businesses signed up for Trick or Treat. So my challenge now is just how I'm going to figure out how to get them all around Adair and that whole area there that will close down. So we're pretty excited about that. Great participation. I just tell everyone to buy a lot of candy because I expect anywhere from 600 to 700 kids in that vicinity. So it's going to be fun. We're looking forward to that, but it's great to see the businesses want to participate. And these are businesses from all within, so the industrial park scattered throughout this area. December 9th, Christmas parade. We changed it up a little bit. We typically have it on Thursday, but now we're going to have it on Saturday. We figured we might get more participation, more floats, so everyone's not really pushed to do that on a Thursday night and get it all broke down and get back to work on Friday. So that's an advantage of having it then. And then also the events we'll have with Santa Claus and the bike giveaways and the cookies. And the whole thing is we partner with Main Street and the EDTA, and all of us were working to have a downtown festival event that day. So just in a full day of events, also promoting our local shops for Christmas shopping and things like that. So we're excited about that. Also, the district will be doing some stuff as well, so I want to add that in as well. So we're hopefully, all of us collectively working together, we're going to have a great day on December the 9th. The only conflict we have that night is Claremore's parade and then also Tulsa's parade that same day, but we figure we're going to be okay there. January 19th, we have our second annual gala event, so that's our awards ceremony brought to you by PACC. So we're excited about that. That'll be at the Mays County Event Center. February 15th through 17th is the Oklahoma Boat and Fish Show. So they're coming back to us this year, but this time they're going out to the Mid-American Expo. So they'll be back. We're excited. They expect it to be bigger than it was last year. So we're very excited about that. And then finally, on March 22nd through 23rd is the Okie Homestead event, which will actually take place at the Mays County Event Center again this year. So very excited about that. That's been successful every single year. It gets better and better and bigger. We hope that the boat show and tackle show will do the same. So outside of that, just a lot going on in the PACC, and you guys have any questions?
Are they doing the Santa's shop or whatever,
At the Graham.
Graham?
Yes.
Okay.
And it just keeps getting bigger and bigger, so they expect maybe to give away 600 cookies and so many bikes this year, so. And then the hope is that we've just collaborated with everyone. We'll have some porta johns down there, food trucks, you know, everybody working together to have a great day.
Okay.
Hopefully the weather will be nice. So, any other questions?
Yes, I got one.
Yes, sir.
Houston, and maybe Jeannie may be able to help me answer this one too. When is, do I need to have my Christmas decorations up downtown?
I'll let
Do
you.
you have a light up Christmas, are we having a light up Pryor like you did last year, or is this all gonna be combined?
November 16th, we're hoping to do that one. It's not gonna be as huge because we're gonna put most of our efforts with the December 9th one. But it would be awesome if it could be up by the 16th of November, but worst case, December 9th, I think.
Okay.
Perfect. Anything else, guys? All right,
Thank
thanks for
you.
allowing me to speak.
Thank you so much.
Jenny? Report from Main Street?
Hello, everybody. So we were able to do another round of facade grants because of some of the funding from EDTA. EDTA, yeah. So we gave $10,000 in total of projects, but the reinvestment was over $43,000. So that's going into facade of downtown. So the contribution from you guys ended up resulting in over 40 grand going back into downtown. So that's something really amazing that's going to make a big impact over the next few months and few years. We also showed a couple buildings. There's a bakery that wants to come downtown. We've helped them get set up with all the things from the state that they need, just smaller questions, some branding, help. And then now we're working with the health department to find them a good building, and we've looked at a couple downtown to bring in their bakery. We had Halloween Town this past week, and that was very well attended. Scott thought that there could have been thousands of people, 3,000 people.
Just felt like it.
Yeah, seriously, throughout the night, and probably was, if you think from 4 to 9, whenever we had it, it was constantly packed elbow to elbow down South 8th Street and down Main Street. So those were people that we got into the building shopping as well, so I'm excited to see those numbers. We have our lights on downtown. Normally we do it kind of a big event where we shut the road down like we typically do with the vendors and food trucks and things like that. This year we're doing it a little bit different since we're going to partner with Houston at the Chamber for the hometown Christmas. So instead of the huge event, we're just going to have, you know, the Christmas tree down at the police department that we worked on last year. We're going to flip that on November 16th. I think we're going to invite the Pryor choir to come down. The library's going to do some programming in there. So we're going to kind of mainly focus it down in that area of downtown this time. And then we're going to do our big event on December 9th. We are also selected as the American Express Neighborhood Champion for Shop Small Saturday. So we're going to be doing some different things for that. That's the Saturday after Thanksgiving. And we're still working on what exactly that looks like, but obviously it's promoting shopping local. We had our state liaison visit from the Oklahoma Department of Commerce. She came down just to check up on everything. I told you guys before that we were selected to have our transformation strategies from nationals. The state pays $7,500 to bring these people in to basically take us to the next level. And so our dates selected for that are January 29th and January 30th. They're going to be looking for a half day on in the afternoon on the 29th for some building owners and things like that. So if you have a building downtown, maybe just know in the afternoon on the 29th, that might be a good time to free up an hour or so. That way you can come and speak with the people from nationals and state. We also, let me go up here. So it's down to me and Casey. So all of the stuff while I was on maternity leave that Meredith was kind of handling, I got caught up on really within just the last couple weeks. And so Ariana and I met with Kimley Horn week before last or last week, and we got the project update from them. They met in August and kind of talked through the vision. They submitted the scope documents to ODOT and everything looks good. They're expecting a notice to proceed at the end of this month, maybe early November from ODOT, and then they'll get their finalized project schedule. Right now, what they gave us for timeline is, once everything is approved, and there's something pretty much every month until, August, but I won't go into too much of detail with that. But in August of 2024 is where it looks like they'll submit the approved final design package, and then they told us it would be a few months after that when we would actually break ground. So realistically, 1 year from now is when we're gonna actually break ground. And then, in the meantime, kind of next steps for us, we're working on creating a public-facing timeline with updates and also hyperlinks where people can go in and see what this broken down timeline looks like, when the brick pavers are expected to be put in, just so people in the community, plus our building owners downtown, business owners downtown can kind of see exactly where we're at. And it'll be a good thing, not only will we update you just talking, but you could always go on there and see where we're at, because the engineer is gonna give us weekly updates that we can use those to update as well. So that's gonna be something coming. Sapulpa, the city of Sapulpa is about to break ground on their entire downtown streetscape plan. So they actually got a TIF to pay for all of this, and they're doing it all at once, but they're breaking ground a few months before us. And so they reached out to us because they wanna brainstorm ideas with us on how we can prepare the building owners, business owners, and community for a complete road shutdown, because ours is gonna be an intersection and theirs is gonna be an entire road. So we're meeting with them this week to brainstorm ideas for that. And then we always meet monthly with our TSET group to make sure that we're in line with everything with them, and all of our funding is gonna be spent by the timeline, and it looks like it's going to be. So that is all I have for now.
So I will say on that streetscape, that is not, the delay in that, or what seems to be like a delay, is not from the city of Pryor or Main Street or TSET, it is ODOT. And we're not the only community that qualified for these grants that were surprised when ODOT came in and then said, oh, here's this timeline, and it's gonna be about a year longer than you anticipated. And ODOT didn't really seem to mind that it appeared that nothing was happening. But that's not on the city or on Main Street by any means.
Yeah, so it's very normal. But it's happening, we're excited. It's gonna be about a year out before we actually see any groundbreaking, but we're gonna be doing things the whole time until then. So there's a lot of required documentation and surveying and things like that we're gonna be doing up until that time. So, any other questions? No?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for your hard work.
Mike, update on the pool task force. And Don, feel free to add anything in as,
Going into winter talking about pools, so. So just kind of in summary, we've had a pretty intentional process over the last 8 or 9 weeks, and I was here, I can't remember exactly when, but our first meeting was August 10th. And our group, the task force, put together some questions to put together to get out to the community. So we did that. We had the online survey. We had 3 meetings kind of in the public, I'll call it, a couple of football games here in town and over in Adair. And then we've had them on display at the rec center. We did the Main Street event one night a few weeks back in September. September was kind of our information gathering month. So that worked out pretty well. I don't know, we're pushing about 1,000 online surveys, some handwritten ones that we collected in the rec. Again, lots of input at those meetings. We had image boards, pictures of the different features that you would see in a water park, and we had people take a few minutes and put dots on the things that they were most particularly interested in. So we did that in September. We had our second meeting September 7th. To talk more about that. So September was the month of the surveys, and had all those meetings. Then right at the end of the month, right before the next meeting in October, which was October 5th, we compiled all the information, and we have that, and we're waiting now, of course, to pass that on to our design group once that was determined and put into play. So that's kind of took about 8 weeks. There's quite a buzz, it seems like, going on out there, all positive from all indications. I've talked to Don several times. Do you have anything to add to any of that, Don?
Not at this point.
Okay, all right, and then, of course, Adam was involved as well. I don't know if you wanna.
No, I would just add that it was a collaborative effort. Those public engagements, we did make sure that, like with the one in Adair, that was Adair and Salina, we had a couple of different representatives from the pool. Rachel and Jackie were there, the task force, and they were pretty instrumental in grabbing people as they came in and explaining to them what we were doing and talking through the different components. And I think some really good conversations came out of that. And I think some of the public perception has changed as we've gone through this process, and they've realized that we've got more to consider than just a pool. We've got to talk about parking, we've got to talk about lifeguards, we've got to talk about maintenance. The task force and the public engagement was, it's great to have a pool and to talk about a pool, but what about the maintenance and the upkeep later on? So that's something that came back from the feedback that we got was, don't just think about building the pool, think about how you're gonna maintain it going forward. And that's part of that last item that Mike talked about, where we've invited a fundraising group to come in and talk with the pool task force. One of their components is to discuss endowment and future maintenance needs and how to build that into the fundraising efforts and the funding efforts, so.
And we've tried to promote it as a county-wide deal, as a, just the Pryor area public pool. And when we were in Adair and Salina, that ball game that night, we talked a little bit about that. Of course, they understand pretty much it'll be in Pryor, and that was another question, is where's it gonna be? And of course, that's yet to be determined. But any questions on any of that at this point?
I'm just curious about the funding that's listed in the agenda. Is that, are you going to be asking the EDTA for that money, or?
For the next item, the next agenda item?
Oh, sorry, I'm jumping ahead. Thanks, Adam.
Yeah, that's all right. But yes.
Okay, yeah.
Short answer is yes.
All right.
Okay,
All right.
if no other items, we'll go to the
Okay.
next one. Mike, you might as well stay up there. and-
So, it has led us to the point, we've got the information now, we'd like to hand it off to design group, and we would like to hand it off to planning design group. Today, we've got Jim Crosby is with us. Didn't want to come on up. And I'll say this, so they've been helping us behind the scenes, gratis. They've not charged us anything. Jim's been very willing and able to help provide, they put together image boards, and basically information. And then this outline that we had basically was taken off of a master, kind of a sample master plan that he had given me just when this whole thing started. So they've been very accommodating and willing to help us get this off the ground. They've got great experience. Adam was with me a couple of times, and Don as well, at their office, looking at all the work that they've done, showing us examples of lots of things and all. So Jim is here today to answer any questions you might have, and then we'll proceed with the rest of the business on that.
Jim, if you'd like to say something about it, please.
Would you all like me to kind of just run through the proposal, not like word for word, but just kind of a general idea of what the master plan would include? Okay, I can do that. So, as Mike said, I think you guys are pretty close to wrapping up the surveys and everything. And so, for us to start with a master plan, you guys would give us a list of the wish list. We aren't guaranteeing that all of that wish list fits in a budget or anything like that, or even the property, but we think, we've measured the property and measured some facilities similar to what you guys are talking about. So the detention pond on the west side's kind of in question whether that needs to be there. And I think Adam was saying that, there might be some joint possibilities with the school system here with them building a new stadium from a parking standpoint, as well as possibly detention if that's required with the city, that maybe we could reclaim that pond area if necessary and do a joint detention facility with the school, which would give us more room for expansion and maybe other things that might go hand in hand with an aquatic center in the future. So kind of the general process, and this is just a master plan. This is not construction drawings or anything that's ready to go out to bid by any means. but it's kind of a space planning exercise to take all those things. For instance, some of the things that have floated out there is a competitive pool, which would be 25 meters, which would be a, sizable pool, and, potentially 7 lanes, but 5 lanes or something. And then a dive tank, slide tank, area with toys and splash pad equipment, possibly a separate splash pad within the fence line, or toys in a beach entry or something like that. So nothing's preconceived yet until we get that final list and get all the items and then kind of start putting the pieces together. There's other things we consider too, whether is it more beneficial and or economical to combine all these into one multi-use big pool that has, a beach entry that goes into a swim lane that can be roped off for the competitive swim events, with a dive tank and swim and slide tank that kind of go into that one main pool? Or is it better, and we can look at it, is it better to have a couple pools? And maybe some of them are combined where you have a multi-use pool, but maybe the competitive pool is a separate pool or something like that, and we'll just look at, both function and economics of that. I believe that we'll find out that the more separate bodies of water you build, the more expensive it'll be, opposed to kind of combining everything into one pool. Now, a lazy river would be a different story, the possibility of a lazy river if that's on the list, and that might start and stop in the main pool, but then meander around the perimeter. Maybe some of you have seen Muskogee, something like that. They've got the lazy river with an island in the middle where they have activities, and that's where the slide towers are and stuff on the island. We're in the process of actually doing improvements for Muskogee's right now. Theirs is starting to get some age. It's probably in the neighborhood of 25 years old, so a lot of it's just maintenance and replaster and tile, and then they are adding some additional swim facilities and toys. But that's what Adam brought out too, and I think, when we look at the pool system, we're gonna be looking at long-term maintenance, and what's the easiest to maintain. Is multiple pools easier to maintain, harder to maintain, the type of filtration system, and, obviously, the top of the line filtration system is gonna cost more than the middle of the road adequate, but average system. So we gotta look and evaluate all those things. So the process would take the entire wish list and first of all, and get it onto paper where everybody can see it. Then comes the hard part. Then we're gonna do a probable cost for the project and see, okay, if you did everything that you wanna do, here's how much it will cost. And then I realize in talking to Mike and Adam that, the fundraising comes kind of after. You really need the master plan to raise the funds. And then, so what I've talked about is I think we need to look at, how can we design this so that it can be expanded in the future? So if fundraising went over the top, you could do it all at once, and if fundraising still did well, because everything's expensive, how could we start with a logical phase 1, but not have to tear up phase 1 to be able to do phase 2 and 3 and so forth. So, we'll want to look at all those things. We'll have Brandon Corp out of Dallas, which is who we use for equipment and MEP work. PDG does all the pool design and layout and, all the deck and the surrounding areas with shade structures, picnic areas, lounge areas, and all the above. I've really emphasized that shade is really important because you get out, on a hot concrete deck and the parents are there and the kids might be fine in the pool, but if the parents aren't happy, then, the kids go home early. So we got to make sure, and some of the other facilities we've done, Sepulpa, they went back and figured out how to add several group shade structures after the fact because they're able to rent those out for birthday parties and stuff, and then they sell kind of a package through their concession stand that includes, hot dog, drink, and ice cream or whatever, and a cake. And so, it was another source for revenue also to be able to rent out those larger group shelters, and then there's, smaller shade as well for just individual families or groups. So we'll look at all the above. We'll lay out. We won't do we might slip in a floor plan of a building that's something similar that we've done before on a facility this size. But really, we're going to look at the building. We're not going to do architecture or anything in this preliminary thing, but we want to make sure that we've got room for an adequate building. And that's state regulated on how many toilets, sinks, and how big the area for the lifeguards and the safety area for that locker room and all that. So that's kind of mandated by the state. So we'll look at that and get a a massing of a building on there that looks adequate, so we know it'll fit on the site. Again, we'll look at egress. How's it going to work if you got a shared parking lot with the high school, but then you've got a rec center? Part of the people are going to come through the rec center, part of the people are going to park. How do they get there? What gate do they go through, so they don't have to loop all the way around, maybe to the front if they're parking, back to the northeast or something. So we'll look at all that type of stuff. And then, like I say, probable cost will be the important part, and that's what you guys will use. The deliverable as just the basic service is a real nice color rendering, plan view to scale, budget and everything. We also, and I didn't include it in here because it adds a substantial cost, but doing some 3D views would be really nice for fundraising. And so we talked about that could be something that you guys could add on, get the basics done, get your fundraising group on board. And if the fundraising group comes back and says, wow, if you really had, a couple of 3D kind of aerial views that show how all this, is going to look in the long run, then we can provide a cost for that as well. So that's kind of it in a nutshell, or maybe bigger in a nutshell, but do you have any questions?
Would you cover the detention pond and how large that is in comparison to what's available right now? Is
You mean,
a detention pond that's
yeah,
sitting
how
at
big
the,
would we be required to have in comparison to what's there now?
because you're gonna have to move that detention pond in all
Yeah.
likelihood.
And we never, and I don't know, maybe Mike, you found out for sure, but we're not sure that that's a detention pond. Obviously, the drainage goes to it and stormwater goes to it, but is it a detention pond or is it just a pass-through pond where it's a holding pool, tank kind of, but it's not a required detention pond. Don't know that for sure yet.
Jared might be able to comment on that.
It's required. It's a detention pond. It's the actual retention pond because it stays wet 24/7, but it's regulating water. And it was not adequately sized to handle any more ultimate load from what I've found.
So what we can do, that's all based on, the non-impervious area, and we'll have all those calculations, but it's gonna come into play, also with obviously the high school and the parking lot and everything else. And again, it could be a bigger study based on what you just said. If it wasn't adequately sized for the facility that's there,
It's sized for the facility that's there. It's not sized for anything, any ultimate,
okay,
if they decided to add any more impervious area out there from the way I can see it.
all right.
And there's two ponds out there. There's a dry pond and a wet pond, and it kind of sits on the hill, and it has two different ways it flows, so.
Yeah. So we don't have an extensive HEC study or anything included in our cost. So
The
we
only,
can include that, but
well, my only point is I bet money that pond's gonna have to be moved in order for us to be able to put all the features in.
I would agree with that statement. I think
Okay.
by the time you get everything on your wish list, that area is gonna be required.
And which means we have to go with the public school Pryor in their development of a retention pond for their facility.
So I think we're getting ahead of ourselves right now. We are just really talking about getting the design. We don't have a location
Right.
at all. There's the possibility of multiple locations that have been discussed. So that's part of what we will have to work through, is where is it going to be based on, one of the things that the PDG will come back with is for your wish list, here's the size of area that you need. And then, again, then it kind of goes back to the task force about where is that going to be. The city has multiple locations that this could end up being at. So I want to be clear, that has not been addressed, and we have not formally approached the school about anything other than just some very general, hey, if it is here, would you be willing to talk? Because if it was an absolute no, then there was no reason to even go down that path.
Right.
So we are still preliminary and still moving through a lot of those type things.
And let me just ask some questions so it becomes clear exactly what I think we're doing here today.
Okay?
And I would agree, and you would agree, and I take it Mike would agree. First of all, there's not even a specific location that's been obtained. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay, Mike, is that right?
Yes.
So we don't want anything out there that suddenly this is where it's going to be.
Right.
We don't know what the total cost of any of this would be. Everybody agree with that?
Correct.
We don't know how any of this would be funded.
Correct.
Is that right? And so what I take it too, that PDG, what you do is you design pools. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
That's good. And I think that's what we're doing here today. I mean, the schools, our first stage before we've ever done any building is we have a design phase by an architect that designs school property. We then determine what we're gonna do from there, where are we gonna get the funding, how are we gonna obtain that, what are we going to do? So I take it the only thing we're doing today, we're here because we have the purse strings,
Correct.
right? The cost of this I'm seeing is $17,750 to do this design. Is that right?
To do a concept
Right.
with a budget so that you can do all the things you just said.
Exactly. We're not talking about full architectural
No,
plans.
not at all.
We're having a concept that can be, and I take it all of this will be run through the pool task force, right?
Exactly.
Right?
Correct.
And they will come back with a recommendation of what a full design would be. And then that is where we would then, and they would come back with a recommendation for location. They would come back for a recommendation for funding. I just don't want it out there that all of a sudden we're building a pool.
Oh, yeah.
But this is simply the first stage, and it's the smart, intelligent stage you do. So you get a concept of what it is you want, a general design, and what it's gonna cost. Then you move to location and funding, is that correct?
Correct.
It's still really part of the feasibility, you know, to make sure the project's even feasible from a budget standpoint, location standpoint, space standpoint, and all that.
And this is what we had discussed about being different than the previous attempts at a pool, was we were gonna go very methodically. And yes, there's gonna be lots of questions about the pond, or about location, or about this, and we're gonna have to have those discussions, but none of that has been decided. This is purely to get the funding to do the feasibility of the design.
And this is different than what a lot of projects have seen in the past. And I just think it's a logical first step, which we have to decide, are we willing to put this money in it to see if this is feasible? I personally think, this is just my opinion, that yes, we should, because if we don't, it dies right here.
Right.
So this isn't, oh my gosh, it's gonna happen, oh my gosh, this is where it's located, oh my gosh, we just don't want that word out there. How are we gonna pay for this? Because we're dealing with so much we hear lately, how we pay, well, we're not even at that stage.
I think the key to that is I think we ought to all refer to it as a feasibility study.
Yes, exactly.
And it's the same
Which is the
thing.
logical step to go. If we don't do that, we'll never see the possibility of doing a facility
Right.
like this. So it just, to me, makes common sense.
And I think Jenny can kind of, with the streetscape, about getting ahead of yourself. You know, we're trying to keep from doing that with this project.
Yeah, that's exactly how we did it, actually with Jim Crosby, we did the design phase, and that's how any of our stuff got going. And so, yeah,
And that
to
was
me, that
really
this makes most
feasibility,
sense.
same thing. You
Yeah.
did a concept, put some numbers to it, then you went and found
Right.
funds through the TAP
We're just
grant.
talking about one stage, we're talking about one stage, doing it with people, but this is what they actually do for a living.
Well, I'm very excited about this. Thank you for all the task force and everyone's time, because this is definitely a need in our community. I do have some clarifying questions, though. I totally agree that this is one of the first steps that we should do. My initial thought is, if we don't have a location and you are tasked with creating a plan that's our dreams and wishes, and we have these, I don't know where the locations are, the potential 3 locations, we find out, hey, 2 of those are a heck no, and this is only 1, but our dreams are way bigger than that actual space. Do we then have to repay money to then edit those plans to be way smaller? And if so, how much is that going to cost us?
That is why we've asked them to design it in a way that can be done in phases.
Okay,
That we can make
beautiful.
it smaller if that's the only component we have.
Okay.
That's the only land available we have, or
Right.
expand it. And it could include a piece where we have to go find location. We have to go find the spot. We have to go find the property.
Okay. I just wanna make sure that we're not shooting ourselves in the foot of paying a lot of money now and then gonna have to pay a lot of money later to edit. But that's why I love the phasing. So that's clarification. Do you have anything to add before?
Yeah, well, I mean, if it was a perfect world, we would be working with just one site.
Right,
We just, as an example, are just finishing up a project for City of Edmond and its sports complex.
yeah,
And they had us evaluate 3 totally different sites, and so we did specific conceptual feasibility plans on all 3 sites, and then they went back and selected the site. Kind of this proposal, to be honest, is written a little bit more towards a site. So
Okay.
if the city picked a site before, but then the catch-22 is, does it fit on that site until you do a conceptual design? So, I mean, and we're willing to work with you and maybe take those pieces and put them on a couple different sites and see how they work. You know, because, you know, and the honest thing is, you know, this is kind of we're working with the city to hope to work with the city on the final plans.
of course.
So, I mean, if we do a little extra work here to help the city really hone down that site, we're willing to do that so that we hopefully have a chance at doing the real final project.
Mhm.
So, we'll be flexible, you know, if we need to look at more than one site, maybe, you know, the pieces can come and move though, you know, once you get the pieces and kind of a lazy river that's 700 feet long costs X amount of dollars. You know, and those pieces, then those same pieces cost about the same whether they're on site A, B, or C.
Right,
So,
And again, that's discussions that'll be had with the task force,
right.
and recommendations coming back from the task force. And even I imagine recommendations working on trying to develop a site to
Mhm.
come to sit.
Yeah, wonderful. I just have another clarifying question. So I heard you say it will be in phases, which I love, and I heard there's gonna be a probable cost at the end. I just wanna clarify and make sure that there will be a probable cost for each phase. 'Cause
Yes.
okay, beautiful.
so if, well, and we don't know what the phases are
Right,
kind of until the fundraising's done. So the fundraising will use what we do to go out and, you know, however they do their fundraising campaign, but they can't go out and raise funds. It's kind of hard to go to a bank and say, do you want to donate to a pool? We don't know how much it's going to cost or what it's going to look like, but you want to
Right.
donate, so that you gotta, you gotta have this plan to even get the ball rolling.
Kind of like a
Right.
fireworks show.
And I guess the next question, because the only thing we're talking about consideration of needing funds for right now is the $17,750, which is coming to the EDTA to consider. And I'm assuming, so in this discussion, the question to you is, are the funds available for this?
Yes, the funds are available.
And explain.
We have about 119,000 in our account.
okay,
That is not with any funding that would come from the general fund to the EDTA for this year. We have not made that request yet. So that's 119,000 that has been there from the last few years of budgetary allocations from the city, plus the proceeds that remain from the sale of the property. So
Not
seven-
not any monies that are already obligated.
no monies that are already
Right.
obligated. That does not include any of the funds that we have the MOU for Main Street with. Those are purely EDTA monies that can be spent anywhere within our borders, or our boundaries. I would think that this would be a good use of EDTA funds for economic development. I think we could look at Muskogee and we can see how busy that complex is down there. I know Mike has talked with the director down there and how many out-of-town people go that direction. And that same influx could happen with Pryor. I know Mayor asked us a few meetings ago to start talking about what we were going to do today to be ready for what potentially is coming to Veneta. I think things like the Inspire, Pryor, Mays County, things like a pool are all part of what are we building today to be ready for that. Reality is a pool, if everything went perfect, we're a year and a half away, Mike? Year away, if everything went perfect. So some of those things, we just have to get the plan so we can have the feasibility,
Right.
so that we can lead into the next phase, which is fundraising and a feasibility on it. You know, and there will be a discussion next month on that.
And I guess the design phase would not only, you know, give us general answers of, this is what it would cost to build it. Just reiterating, it also give us an idea of, this is also an estimate of what it'll cost to maintain and upkeep it. Will we get that from this too?
Yeah, we can include that.
Because I just think that's been discussed earlier. I think that's extremely important. Because you just want to build something and then you go, oh my gosh, I didn't know it's going to cost us to maintain it.
Yeah.
So I think those are important things to know, to present to the task force, for them to also incorporate in their
That was one of the requests from the task force, was that we consider, and that when those components start coming into the task force, to look at the difference between cloth for the awning covers or the shade structures versus using a metal or something that lasts a little longer. You know, what's that cost trade-off? The task force, I think, would be pretty involved in those discussions with materials and feasibility of using them. And then, to be very clear though, on your other question about the phases, we have asked them to design, we being the task force, to design the entire structure, the entire complex, based on all of the wishes that came back from the citizens. And then, you know, if that's hey, it's 20 million, we'll probably ask them immediately, you know, hey, let's scale this back. But we also had lots of conversations about, okay, if we do want a splash pad incorporated into it, can we build that to where that can be added later? Can we size the pumps up now to be able to do a component later? So I don't know that it's gonna necessarily, the first time you get a look at it, say phase 1, 2, 3, 4, it may just say, here's the Pryor area pool. And then we may have to go back after the fundraising tells us what we can really raise and say, okay, Jim, help us break this into phases.
Right.
Yeah, to kind of add to that, you're familiar with the streetscape, so there was an overall budget and it broke it down
Right,
in
and I
phases.
love that.
I think you guys
It helped
indeed
us.
followed that with phase 1. Since this one might be a little different but the same, it might be that we price everything like a lazy river costs this much, a competitive pool costs this much, a
Right.
dive tank and slides cost this much. So it's not necessarily phasing until you figure out how much money you've raised, but it shows all the components. So there might be, you know, 2 million, 3 million, 2 million, 1 million, you know,
Right.
whatever. And if you add them all up, it equals 20 million or 10
Right.
million or whatever. But then at that point, you can start saying, well, it adds up to 15 million, but we raised 8.
Yeah.
So we can take this item, and this item to
Right.
kind of start the phase 1. That won't be 100% right because that'll change the deck and different things.
Right.
But that'll give you a pretty good idea of what phase 1 would be.
I understand all of this, and I think this is great. I would just recommend to the task force and that the first phase just be the bare minimum of what we need, which is probably that competitive pool. You know what I'm saying? At least that we have that piece broken out. You know what I'm saying? But that's just thoughts. But
Well,
thank you.
and I understand that, and I guess my recommendation along that would be for the task force to work with you and come back with
Yes.
whatever they think is appropriate.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yes.
You know, this pool project may or may not ever happen. We don't know sitting here today. But my
Way
belief is
costs go
if
up.
we don't do this, which we have the funding available for, it will never happen.
Exactly right.
Okay, so
And yeah.
any other questions?
What's your timeline on your services? You got preliminary master plan, how long you think that's gonna take to come up with?
The
And then
preliminary portion.
I'll piggyback off of that, what's it gonna take for your final master plan? So, you know,
Well-
Mr. Allworth can put it in the paper, like, you know, 60 to 90 days, we might have I mean, cause that's the $1 million question is price and timeline, so.
Yeah, hold our feet to the fire.
It's kinda open-ended right here, there's no timelines.
You know, without knowing that this was gonna be approved or anything, I haven't put an exact timeline on, but I can do that. I'd rather not say something off the top of my head that isn't right. So I can, get back, even if it's before you execute this, I can, you know, get back to the office, check our workload, see, you know, when we'd start and give you an idea on, and the preliminary will be broken down into a couple of phases. We're gonna do quick concepts first that kind of get the juices flowing and, hey, we like A better than B or whatever. And then we'll take and refine that and, into a final preliminary plan. Then we'll do a final master plan where it's all in CAD and we color it up and, you know, have a presentation drawing.
And how does this pay? Is
Yeah, I
it
mean-
half now or the half, what?
It is 50%.
It's monthly.
Well,
That's
yeah,
what it
it's
reads.
just monthly, right?
It's
That
based on-
50% is just, if it took us 3 months to do the preliminary, then we bill monthly for just progress.
But the total of this pack we're talking about is 17,750.
Yeah. And half of that's attributed to the preliminary portion and half of it to the final. And again, not mistaking final with any final plans, but
Right,
the final.
not design.
If this is approved today, are you signing it, or does it have to go in front of council?
No, it would just stay here.
I think this
You would
is,
stay here?
this is trust money.
The only change we would have is the name currently is with Pryor Creek Recreation Center, and I think that was just a timing issue. It would actually be with the EDTA, so we would have that changed, and it would be the EDTA and PDG.
Yeah, I can send that back to you.
And so we would sign it today, and from our preliminary discussions, we would have something back for the fundraising entity. We'll have another contract to discuss with that, but that the fundraising entity could start raising funds by the end of this year, or having those initial discussions.
Okay. Yeah, and to sort of answer the question, we don't want to dilly-dally around, you know, because the longer something sits on the table, the harder it gets, you know, less productive it is. So it's really, what date can we start it? But once we start it, we want to go full speed ahead.
Awesome.
Terry, did you have a question?
Yeah, just on the agenda says final master plan phase. Is that gonna be the final master plan design or the final master plan?
No, it's just a plan.
Conceptual.
Just the
So,
plan.
let's say they gotta come up with a plan, say it's a $20 million project, what's your design fees to get that to construction and bidding? Is it 5%, 10%, 8%,
8%-ish?
8%-ish? So, yeah, so you,
This is gonna be a design at the end of the 17,000 expense.
no, this is just
It's
gonna
all
be,
conceptual.
this will be
It's
all
our
conceptual.
dreams.
This is a pretty drawing.
Yeah,
I think a good key word would be feasibility.
yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so that agenda item probably needs to, does it need to change the wording? Or is it still, would it still be a final master plan or would it be a?
Well, I think we
It-
understand this final master plan is for the feasibility.
And it's the final
Not-
master
not
plan
the
phase.
Architectural design or the.
Correct, so
But that,
it's kind of a feasibility master plan. if you
Right,
wanna lump them
and
together.
I understand, but I mean, I think I understand the language.
Yeah, that's how he puts it in the
As it is
paper, that the
worded.
citizens don't think it's a final plan.
Right, it's, right. It will not be engineered or designed.
that's, I
So,
mean,
yeah.
the agenda item.
Yeah.
It will not reflect any construction plans, it's just a feasibility master plan
Yeah,
for fundraising purposes.
Beautiful.
All right, anything else?
Anybody? Can I make a motion?
So, to go along with what Terry said, why don't we amend the,
I think we.
Agenda.
Just no, we just, I'm gonna make a motion.
okay,
I'd move that the EDTA enter into a agreement with Planning Design Group for professional services related to the development preliminary and final master plan for design. Is that the language, proper language to use?
I wasn't actually paying attention, I was looking at.
I think it sounded right.
For
It
design.
should be a master plan for the feasibility.
The public thinks
Get the design
design is
out.
engineering, just,
Yeah, it's
so
just,
I would not say design.
well,
I'd
well,
Say it.
I understand design. I
Right.
can't speak for what the general public is gonna understand.
Right.
That's not architectural plans, that's not final plans for actual construction. You could never use these plans for construction. It
Right.
is just to give a concept.
Yes.
You said a conceptual feasibility master plan.
Love
There we
it.
go. I take that in my wording, my motion.
There we
and
go.
Make that
You
motion.
got that, Jay?
I'll second that motion.
Feasibility master plan, right?
Conceptual feasibility master plan.
At the cost of $17,750.
Okay, we have a motion and a second You'll call the roll, please.
I'm sorry, who did second that?
I did.
Ariana?
Thank you all
Thank
for
you,
your
Jim.
hard work.
Yes, thank
We're
you.
excited.
Miller,
Yes.
Anderson,
Yes.
Sordahl,
Yes.
Dirk,
Yes.
Berger.
Yes.
Okay, thank you, guys and ladies. The next thing is discussion and possible action on approving the 2024 EDTA meeting schedule. Jay, is that in the?
Yes.
There it
it's
is.
the last page.
Didn't flip it over.
I didn't bring my 2024.
So again, this, like previous years, this is just the
I know, but it's not.
outline for the meetings. These can change if something does come up. I think the only one that's not on the second Monday of a month is the one in October, and that is moved to the following week because of Columbus Day and Indigenous People Days,
In November also.
and November as well. That's what the little star means, isn't it?
I think so.
Okay, so if you guys don't have any question, we could take a motion to approve that.
I so move.
We have a second?
Second.
Okay, you would do the roll, please?
Anderson,
Yes.
Sordahl,
Yes.
Dirk,
Yes.
Berger,
Yes.
Miller.
Yes. And we are adjourned. That is it.